Come with me. We're on a bus going down the hill to dinner in a van here in Mykonos. It's a beautiful day. The sun is out. It's starting to set over the sea. We're enjoying our time together. And bam! We're dead. We're dead. You're dead. You're dead. Why? Why did you die with me on this bus in Mykonos? The reason is because there were aftermarket car parts in the van. And when we hit the car in front of us, they didn't do their job, and we all perished. And we're going to have to tell our loved ones we had a great time in Mykonos, and that was it. They'll send a card. That's one story. We're on a bus. We're going down the hill in Mykonos. We're going to dinner. We run into the car in front of us. Two Greek guys get out in the road. They yell at each other a little bit. They sort it out. We get back in the car. We go have a lovely dinner. Why? Because there were aftermarket car parts in the van. And they do just as well a job as the OEM, original equipment manufacturer parts. The facts didn't change. The story changed. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. How to build equity through stories. I'm going to ask you to be courageous, to take a leap in your businesses, as an investor, in the companies who are who make up your portfolio company. The commitment to communicate is one that requires confidence, certainty, but the payoff is tremendous, and it can help you a lot. Now, I put this deck together well before I got here because I knew that someone here at some point over the course of the week was going to talk about how they wanted to fly below the radar, and I've heard it a few times here. It's a concept that I would ask you to forget, because it's not a winning strategy. It's a short-term, temporary thing. And the quicker you stop flying below the radar, the quicker you start flying out and being noticed and being seen and telling your story. There are three things that I hope you'll leave from this presentation with, and you'll take back and you'll utilize, not just in your company, but also in your life. The first, to lead with communication. The second is this notion that perception is reality. And the third, you build equity through stories. So what do I mean when I say lead with communication? What I would suggest is entrepreneurs spend an awful amount of time focusing on their product or focusing on their service, and they make communication an afterthought. It becomes something that they say, well, when I've raised the money, then we'll stop flying below the radar. We'll start talking about it. We'll start communicating. We'll go out of stealth mode. They think about communication as a nice to have as opposed to a must have, and that needs to change. Because your ability to communicate is going to lift up your business. It's going to lift up the investments that you make. Because why? Think about all of the audiences, the people with whom you need to communicate on an ongoing basis. When you tell a story, you're going to inspire the people who work for you. You're going to recruit the right kinds of people who want to join you on your mission. You're going to excite your customers. They're going to feel good about being connected to you. You're going to introduce yourself to an ever-widening audience, especially your target market, so that they can find you, and they don't just come upon you, they seek you out. That only happens through communicating. If you want to change the way that someone thinks, you have to change the way they feel. And how do you change the way they feel? Through telling stories. And when I talk about leading with communication, at the end of the day, what we do, there's always someone who's doing something similar to what you're doing. We spent yesterday talking about mobility. We heard from some great companies, and they're doing different things, but they're all within the same realm. How you talk about yourself and what you're doing, your ability to effectively communicate is how you set yourself apart. All those apples look pretty much the same, except one is popping. That's the communicator. That's the company that's willing to take that leap to invest in communicating, to telling their story in the right way, at the right time, to the right people. So you're sitting there thinking, this all sounds great. Now, how do I do that? This is all 30,000-foot view stuff. Well, let's use a concrete example. Let's talk about, I'm going to pick on our wonderful host, Julie. She brought us all here for this FTE conference. So we've had a great time. The food is amazing. The scenery is fantastic. We've had a good time. Maybe a few of us went out to a nightclub late into the morning last night. It's not a story you're going to hear about today, or perhaps you already did. Sometimes you communicate even when you're not communicating. But imagine this conference just happened, and we had a great moment in time. That might be enough, but I would argue Julie and Scott are too smart to let that happen. So what are they going to do? Julie is too smart to let that happen. So what's going to happen now? They're already doing it. If you follow their social media, they're posting about this. The words they're choosing convey a message. They're posting visual snapshots from what's going on. There's a camera rolling in the back. They're going to be sharing this content. There was an editor from the Greek financial publication who was attending. There's going to be an article about what's happened here. Oh, it's already come out. Okay, so already we've got 2 pieces of earned media that have already come out, and there will be more. And maybe Julie's going to write an op-ed about it. And maybe the content that's being recorded here is going to be shared. And we're then going to go and we're going to amplify it, and we're going to send it all over the world. So think about how that applies to your company. There is a time where it was very, very hard to communicate and to get your message out. You could only reach a local audience. Now, with a few clicks of the keyboard, you can reach a global audience, and you can do it instantly. So think about your own business. Think about how you can take small things that are happening day to day that you're not thinking much about. How can you leverage those? How can you utilize them to tell a story about who you are, what you do, what you offer to the world? And the sooner you get in that, the quicker you're going to start to see a return on that investment. The second concept that I promised to talk about is perception is reality. Ooh. What you perceive in this world, the age of the internet, it matters. Why? Because in the course of your life, you're probably going to meet maybe 80,000 people. You might meet 100,000 because you've got a lot of friends. The point is, even if you meet 100,000, 120,000, you haven't met 8 billion people. But the world that we're living in right now, not only can you meet 8 billion people, you can impact 8 billion people. You can inspire 8 billion people. 8 billion people can decide whether they like you or not. They want to do business with people they like and they trust. So if you were to take out your phones right now and Google yourselves, what would you see? That's what the world sees, and you can control that. It's all in our control, and that's an amazing thing. What do you see when you look in the mirror? When you think about your company, what does the world see about you? Well, that's up to you. If you can wait and hope that they make up their minds, or you can help teach them who you are, explain to them who you are, you can inspire them. That's all within our control because we are in an interconnected world where information travels fast and where the perceptions become realities in matters of seconds, not minutes, not even hours or days or weeks or months. But you have the control. And the point of this conversation is hopefully you'll walk away from this thinking, I am in control and there are things that I can do and I must do, starting today, that will make a material difference in the value of your business, your investments. Okay, If you know who the guy on the left is, raise your left hand. Okay, if you know who the guy on the right is, raise your right hand. Okay, if you've spent a week with them on vacation, and you've had meals with them, and you've hung out together and talked about your favorite music, keep your hands up. Is there anyone who's done that? You spent a week with them? You spent a week with them. Okay, you spent 5 days. Okay, so you went to Necker Island, perhaps. You went there as well. Everyone in this room knew who these gentlemen were. And everyone has an idea about the value that they bring, the companies that they lead, the products that they create. But I would argue, even after 5 days, maybe you don't really know him. It's not a childhood friend, but you have a perception. For the rest of us, we haven't had that opportunity. But yet we know how we feel about Tesla. We know how we feel about Virgin. We know the story of what these guys do. We know that Elon Musk moves markets. These two guys understand the power of communication, and they know that perception is reality, and they're engaged, and they've shaped it over years and years. What if we didn't have business people up here? What if we had someone who inspires you on a humanitarian level, a creative person, an artist? You think you know them. You don't actually know them, but that's okay. You know what they want you to know. And the same has to be true for you. What do you want people to know about you and what you're doing? That's up to you. That's not up to them. And the reason is, when you start telling stories, you start creating value and you build equity. Press the truth. It used to be ingrained in our heads from the earliest age that we all needed to tell the truth. Honesty is the best policy. The greatest presidents that we think of in the United States, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, the thing that we praised the most about them was their ability and their willingness to tell the truth. Well, I would suggest to you, we need to forget that idea. It's a lie and it's dead. Don't tell the truth anymore. Don't tell the truth. You need to press the truth. I'm not telling you to lie. I'm not telling you to misrepresent. But when you're talking about your company, telling the truth is passive. It's weak. It is reactive. It should go against, for the entrepreneurs in the room, every fiber of your being. You don't like to sit back. You don't let the world control your company. You control it. You take an active role. You have to press the truth. You have to be engaged. You have to be proactive. You have to be willing to step into the fray. Because if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to tell your story for you. And the guarantee I can give you today is they're not going to tell the story as well as you can tell it, and it's not going to be the story that you want to be told. But again, that's up to you. You've got to press the truth. Press, is it a verb? Is it a noun? It's both. What do I mean? Press. You got to push it. You got to drive a narrative. And I want you to think about every time you say something, every communication that you give to your team, what's the outcome you're looking for? Now, we're also living in a very dangerous world. And half of my business at Red Banyan is helping organizations and companies press the truth. The other half is helping them to avoid crises or being canceled. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about cancel culture, except to say that's the topic of a book. The manuscript's due by the end of the year. It will be finished, and it'll be out next year. And that is a phenomenon that we have to fight against, because there has never been a more dangerous time for you investors and for you business owners, you business leaders than today. Because just as quickly as you can communicate and you can tell your story and you can shape perceptions that become reality, other people can do that to you, and they can attack you and they can try to bring you down. And I invite you to use the QR code there. This is a book. I'm not telling you that because the royalties that I'll get when you download this book, they might buy me one cappuccino at Starbucks. The point is not to encourage you to boost my book sales. I wrote this book because I believe that entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders need to protect themselves, and you need to protect your investments. And so I put a bunch of strategies that you can learn about if you download the book. If you don't like reading or you don't want to read in English, you can also download the audio version. It's on Audible. I narrate it, so it'll be really weird. You can listen to it. I'll tuck you in at night. You can listen to my voice as you fall asleep. I'm sure your partner will love that. And I'm going to introduce you now to the greatest entrepreneur that you haven't met yet. This is my friend. Adorable dog, adorable guy. He had a small business. It's a pet grooming business. Nothing special about it. What was his story? Well, they gave dogs baths and haircuts. They clipped their toenails. That's not really that exciting, is it? That's not much of a story. He had a very small business, less than $1 million in revenue. Well, Tim was an amazing operator, one of the best operational CEOs you'll ever meet. Processes, data, analytics. And eventually, he also made a switch, and he became one of the most creative and effective storytellers who you know. And the story of ScentHound evolved. And they went from being a small business that had a narrow market to instead he created something else. The name Scent is an acronym: skin, coat, ears, nails, teeth. What Tim figured out was only a small fraction of people own dogs. And of those people, only a small fraction of those people have breeds of dogs that actually require grooming. So what the hell is he doing in business? He's got a very limited market. Well, he told a different story. He's now the head of a company that provides preventive health maintenance to extend the life of your loved one, your four-legged friend, your family member. Everyone who owns a dog understands that you want to make that dog as healthy as possible and have as many years of joy with that dog as possible. So instead, what he's created is a brand new concept in a multi-billion-dollar space, the pet industry, to basically say, if you own a dog and you love your dog, well, you've got to be a client of ScentHound, because this is how you keep your dog healthy and you extend the dog's life. And now, the story that you get from Tim is one of the fastest growing companies in this space. Dozens of franchises opening up all over the country right now. All of the big players in the space coming to him because they see the content that they put out. They're excited about their unique value proposition. They're coming to him. He's attracting the right kind of people. He's attracting the right kind of leadership. He's telling a story. He's built equity through storytelling. And he's changed the story. It's like when I told you at the beginning, we were going down the mountain in Mykonos. I know you probably try to forget. It's the facts are largely immaterial. The facts don't change, but how you talk about them and how you speak about them and what you focus upon, that's what moves the needle. That's what changes everything for you. And so what I'd say is, as you walk out of this room today, and you should start today, make no mistake about it, my challenge to you is this: what's your story? How are you defining your company? Your clients want to know. Your customers, your employees, they certainly want to know. The market wants to know. What story are you going to tell? And if you will commit to being brave, to communicating with authenticity, to doing it on an ongoing basis, to figuring out who you need to speak to, and having the courage and the conviction to go to them and offer yourself up, because there are some amazing ideas in this room. There are some amazing creators. The power is in your hands. And when you decide that you're going to commit to making communication a fundamental part of what you do as a leader, and when you ensure that the perception becomes reality, and you will build equity through your storytelling. Thank you.